Yeah, we're live. I'm here early even. I've got something I have to be in places I have to go later tonight, so I wasn't going to be able to make the 7 o'clock showing for the live feed. So I thought I'd get on here early and talk about, because we got a lot of cool stuff to talk about. First of all, obviously, if you saw in the thumbnail, I don't know if you guys can see that, the turbo is installed and running. It was running today on the 8.1 liter big block Chevy, the Gen 7. Basically bone stock junkyard motor. All we did, we made a lot of runs already NA. And then what I did was ran the, I installed the long tube headers on, or not long tube headers, they're turbo headers from Jason over at JT Fab. Then I had to remake, if you were watching the live feed last night, you know that I cut and welded up the Y pipe and had to fix that. So I did that this morning. Got everything running, put a 2-bar map sensor on it because I'd been running it with a 1-bar. I also had changed the oil and took the bypass out of the filter so that it would have more oil pressure, which it did. All of that worked out really good. To put on the air to water intercooler, the Pro Charger unit. I even brought the chili bomb because I was going to test that, but I can't do that right now because I got to figure out what's going on with this motor. But I was able to, and then we were started out on E85. My plan was to run E85 and then also run 91, which we can't do. I'm trying to get my, there we go. I'm trying to get my focus in focus. And to do a comparison between, because we can run this thing on, you know, it's 9 to 1 and it has an intercooler, and we can just take the timing out of it and easily run it at this low boost level. So we ran it at a couple of low boost levels. And then what happened was during one of the runs, during the last run, it lost all power. I mean, it went down from the huge power that it was making down to like 100 horsepower. So I'm like, oh, okay, great. Well, I was certain that I blew a head gasket, because that would be the normal thing. Although I didn't see smoke everywhere. I didn't see water. I didn't see, smoke coming out of the turbo. I didn't see any smoke coming out of the oil fill or anything. There was just nothing. There were no signs that anything was going on. The thing still idled good. It still had good oil pressure. I even went in after cooling everything down, and I first did just a manual check of compression. I just wanted to make sure that the cylinders were all there. So I just held my thumb over, you're cranking it. Yeah, they all have compression. Now let's find out how much they have. So I took the compression gauge, did a cranking compression test on all the cylinders. They're all even. So everything is there. So the air fuel was perfect. The timing was perfect. The boost stayed consistent. Even the air fuel stayed consistent with it not making any power, which I don't really understand. The motor is still, it seems like it's still alive. I mean, it still runs. The oil pressure is still good. It's not eating a bearing or anything. The oil pressure was good during all the runs. In fact, after taking the bypass out of it, the oil pressure is quite a bit higher, which I like. I did a cranking compression test and all the cylinders are there. It still has good oil pressure. So I'm thinking that the motor is still fine and happy. So I'm trying to figure out now why when I try to do a load in, there's no power. So it's leading me toward maybe a bad plug or plugs, wires, and coil packs. I'm wondering if a coil pack or something went bad. So I'm gonna have to do a little bit of testing and try to figure that out. We'll have to. I can put on some LS coils and see if that's it. We obviously can. And I had already put new plugs in it because I had run I never even took the plugs out when we ran the thing NA. It came with the plugs that it came with from the wrecking yard. I don't know what kind of shape they were in. Never took them out. Never checked any of that stuff. We just put it up there and ran it, and it seemed to run okay. So we just kept them in there. But I took those out because they were factory plugs, and then replaced them with some NGK TR6s. I think I would like to go even colder, but they were a tapered reach plug, and I didn't have any tapered reach plugs here that would be cold enough that we had a set of used TR6s. So I just stuck those in there, and I was only running 7 pounds anyways, and all of that worked out just fine. And I was going to start out on E85, so I went to the local station, grabbed some E85, and was going to start out with that. And then once the tune was spot on, which is pretty easy to do, thanks to Ish and Eric for getting everything set up on the NA one. All I had to do was, cut and paste and make it into a 2-bar deal. All of that's fairly easy. And then what I do when I go, because we were running everything on pump gas before. So I was running a 1 bar on pump gas, went to a 2 bar on E85. And that may seem like a big change, but it's not really, because all you have to do is take the NA power or the NA fuel numbers, and then we just put them up at the top on the 2 bar deal. We double them. We interpolate down 1 bar section. The bottom all stays the same. And then I take the whole thing after I do that, and okay, that would give us a good curve if we were running on pump gas. But then I take all that and do a multiplier and, calculate it out and multiply it by, 25 or 30%, and then and then I add a little bit more to make sure that it's rich when I run it. I'm more concerned not with the idling and stuff, but that's really easy to trim. But I'm more concerned with what happens when I'm loading it. So we have enough fuel for the E85, and then the 2 bar was all working. All of that was working fine. As I said, we have the ProCharger air-to-water intercooler. We have an S475 that's a T6. I also, and I've never even looked at them yet, I set up provisions to monitor both back pressure and air temperature, because I wanted to test the chili bomb. So if I can get this thing running again and get it cooperating, I'll take off the ProCharger air-to-water intercooler and we'll put on the chili bomb, even though it's smaller. The inlet and outlet are quite a bit smaller, but it'll be interesting to see at this power level what that thing has to do. I mean, how much it will support. It's a little small in the inlet and outlet, obviously, compared to what that ProCharger one is. But all of it worked out really well. It seemed like it was very happy. It's making like 1,000,000 foot-pounds of torque. It's kind of awesome. So let's walk in. We can walk in there and take a look at that. The fuel price when I was over at, this was at a 76 station, which is typically fairly high. I think gas was $5.75 or $5.80 or something, and then the E85 was $3.30 or $3.40 a gallon. So still a really good deal for for race gas, basically. So we'll walk in here and take a look. Wah, wah, wah. Okay, take a look at all this. So we'll go from the side first over here. So you can see a lot going on. Here's our turbo headers, because every header is a turbo header, just like every cam is a turbo cam. We've got dual wastegates, so we have the exhaust feeding. As you can see, exhaust feeding our Y pipe. Dual wastegates on it. We have them teed. Right now I have a manual controller on it. We also have the electronic controller down on the ground that we can run. We have this Summit Racing T6 S475. You can see that I've got the 3-inch V-band to T6 adapter. And this thing was high enough that I could just use the drain going into the crank sensor hole. It is leaking a little bit. It's not perfectly sealed, but for what we're doing, it's fine. And then we got the intercooler ProCharger. Got our big 3.5-inch discharge tube, and then we're just clamped onto our fancy drive-by-wire throttle body. I had a rag stuck in here, but didn't see much coming out, so obviously there's not a lot of blow-by. I was a little concerned because this has a PCV set up with a small opening in the bottom of the manifold that goes down into the valley. I was hoping not to see, because we ran across that with the 3800, where we were basically boosting the crankcase, and that's not good because it wants to blow a bunch of stuff out. So after that was solved, that worked good. And I was a little concerned with this, but I think that opening is so small that it's not really an issue, given how much airflow we're processing. And this thing has the one thing that I don't like about this S475 are these giant size like V-bands that you have to have. Lucky for me, the guys at Westech have these reducers that they use for the exhaust on the chassis down the side. So we reduce this down. I think that this is down to a 3.5, or yeah, I think that's at 3.5. Might be a 4. I'll have to measure it. But that's more than enough flow for what we're trying to do. Everything else, stock coil packs and stock intake manifold. All of that's just, the way it is. I'll show you this is the bypass that we pulled out of there. So 3-inch or a 3/8 bolt. Just you screw it into there tight enough and just yank that thing out. It came right out. It was pretty nice. That's, you know, that's what the internet's for. So we found out all that stuff on the internet. So I have, as you can see, I pulled the plugs out. These were the factory plugs. You can kind of see big giant gap on those. These are the TR6s. Gap those down to about 20 or 21. NGK TR6 full race. Took off my 1 bar. See, it even has a 1 on it, so we know what it is. Took off the 1 bar map, put on the 2 bar over here. See that? You can see the vacuum plug. That's where the factory map sensor goes. Piece of hose. You know how we do it. This was my junkyard trip. Get the exhaust section for the most importantly, the flange that fits on the factory exhaust manifold. So you can see here, I've got the provision to read back pressure in the exhaust, and I get questions all the time how we do it. So that you can see we just have a fitting there. Fitting going into the exhaust, that's in the merge. It could be anywhere really, and I've taken, you can see there's another fitting right here. I've tested it at various places and it seems to be pretty consistent. So I run a length of aluminum tube that helps kind of cool it off. We go to a rubber tube and then it goes up to the dyno up there. We got a fitting on there so that we can read that. And then also I've got over here our O2 sensor in the exhaust. To recharge temperature after the intercooler. I don't have one before. You know, we could put one here or coming out of the turbo. Fancy. So this was a good setup. OG Turbo Smart Race Port blow off valve up here. It's amazing how well these junkyard motors work. So let's go in and we'll take a look at some results here and I'll show you what's going on. And then I'll set up make sure that we have a poll today. Plug this in. Okay. Computer doesn't have a limp home mode, unfortunately. Checking to make sure it didn't have a rev limiter, but it just doesn't want to load in and make power. So something else is going on. I don't think, like I said, I don't think that the motor's hurt because otherwise you see that in cranking compression or oil pressure normally. And we can take a look here. Okay, I'll get you guys set up so you guys can see what's going on here. You guys see that okay? Trying to get rid of the glare. There we go. Okay, so this was our naturally aspirated combination. Oh, that's our turbo combination. Let's go to the other one here. Okay, so our NA motor, you guys can see this over here, 250, 354, 455, 550. So this thing made 423 horsepower NA with headers on it, with the big headers on it, and 554 foot-pounds of torque. Here's what happened when we added the turbo. This is at 7 pounds. 7.1 was the peak number in the middle. You'll notice we made 638 horsepower, and peak torque was 848 foot-pounds of torque. So if you do the math on that, this thing is following, hey, big surprise, but it's following very closely to the magic Holdener power boost formula, which they do. In fact, I think if you did the math, this thing would turn out to be a little bit better. So this was only at about 7 pounds of boost. And this was running E85. This had 19, or let me check, and I think it's 19 or 20 degrees of timing in it at the top. Timing table. Yeah, so we're starting out. It's about 15 degrees at below 3,000, and then it goes up to 19.6 pounds or 19.6 degrees of timing at the top. And it's 19.5 or 6. Oh, actually, not even that much, because we were only at 5,500. Is it 19 pounds or 19 degrees? At 5,000, it's only 18.5 degrees. So yeah, you know, just figure 19 or 19.5 or 20 degrees of timing is about right. 848 foot-pounds. That's pretty stout. It's showing that it's continuing to do what we thought it would do. The boost curve is very consistent. It's the boost is all in at their load-in point. We loaded it at 2,600 RPM. I didn't try loading it down any lower than that yet. We can, and it seems like it will still be making a pretty good boost down there, even with this size turbo. It's a big motor. It's 496 inches. So it has no trouble spooling up this one, even though it's not obviously making a lot of horsepower, but it is making a lot of torque. And that's the thing that we always talk about when we're picking camshafts and things like that. If we can make more power down low, then we can make more response. And this is showing you what response is. So let's maybe take a look for the first time. I haven't seen this. So let me take a look at let's see what we have for air temperature. Okay, so we have looks like our air temperature is going from 88 degrees to 100 degrees. And then let's see if I can find back pressure. So that's going to be 14. Okay, so at we're looking at the boost curve here. We can actually I'm gonna look at the curve here. So we're looking at boost pressure and back pressure. 64. So I'll do a quick. So this is our boost pressure and back pressure curves. What's going on here is the back pressure is lower than boost pressure when we're loading in at 2600 RPM. Back pressure is only, I don't know, 4.6 or 4.7. 4.6 or 4.7 pounds, and boost pressure is 6.7. They cross over at 3,800 RPM. And this thing went up to a peak of 8.9 pounds of back pressure at 7.1 pounds of boost. And actually it wasn't quite that high here. Yeah, it was right at 7. So it had about 2 pounds more back pressure than it had boost pressure on this application, on this combination. So good amount. I'm kind of surprised that the plenum temperature is that high. That's surprising, given the low boost level. So it's good data on the Gen 7 big block. So now I just got to figure out, and we'll do our poll here. Okay, so the question will be, is the reason the 8.1 liter doesn't power a Okay, the poll for right now is the coil pack the problem? So right now it so we don't want an option. Okay. So the poll is right now, the thing is not it doesn't want to take throttle, doesn't want to make any power. The compression the compression test is all even. They're all at like 175 pounds of cranking compression, which is what they should be for this motor. There's no problem with oil pressure. As a matter of fact, what I'll do is I'm going to show you guys what the run looked like when it let go when it stopped making power. So you guys tell me what you think. Okay, so here's what happens when all power goes away. Here's what it looks like. So we're doing good. We had turned the boost up of not quite a full pound, somewhere near a pound. 877 foot-pounds. It was on its way to making 665 horsepower. And then all of a sudden at 4,800 or so, 4,800 RPM, just fell out of it. Normally, when you see something like this, somewhere else, you lost oil pressure, you see smoke all over because you've just kicked a rod out. You know, because we've broken ring lands and pistons, when we've done that, you see smoke. You know, it gets bad. We've seen it lose power like that. The thing is, the boost stayed consistent. It made the same 7 pounds or 7.5 pounds. The air fuel stayed consistent. It just lost all power. That's what I'm trying to trace right now. Obviously, the thing, I mean, you can see the comparison between this and the run that I ran before. So we turned the boost up a little bit. The power was up a little bit, which is kind of what it should be. We didn't make big jumps. It's getting near, it's creeping up. I mean, one more turn of that thing and it's at 900 foot-pounds of torque. So what do you guys think it is? Do you think it's a coil pack? Do you think it's a spark plug? What what are the words of wisdom that I get from the guys? Let's see what you guys got going on. Hopefully you guys are having a good weekend. Valve springs. It's not valve springs. We wouldn't have cranking compression, I don't think, if we broke a spring. I could take the valve covers off and look, but it would take load at lower engine speeds, I think, if it was a valve spring. There's no fuel pump issue because there's no change in air fuel. We have a big aeromotive pump on here, and the fuel pressure is constant. Fuel pressure from the pump is right at 66. That's oil pressure. Where's my fuel pressure at? Here we go. Come on. There we go. Yeah, fuel pressure is staying constant at 56 psi, which is what we have it set at. Could a cam or crank sensor go out? That's possible, but I would think that it wouldn't run all the time if that was the case. Did you plug the vacuum port under the intake? I didn't, but I've already made 10 runs under boost, and it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. And also the boost is showing that the boost is there. It is making boost. No, the turbo is making boost. The boost is still there. Crankcase pressure, I don't see that. Coil packs would misfire. Not a broken valve spring. Are they weak? Well, like I said, it just made 10 runs in a row or whatever, and I don't think that that's it. It's not just one run. Show you the fuel curve. Let's see. The fuel curve isn't going to show you anything because where the turbines are hooked up to the carbureted lines feeding the tower, so that's not going to tell you anything. It's not a fuel flow problem. Like I said, the fuel pressure is the air fuel is dead on at like 11.5 or 11.6, and the fuel pressure is constant, so it's not a fuel flow problem. Crank position sensor error, that it could be that. I could, when I'm cranking it, I should check and see and make sure that I have RPM. Yeah, and I'm not using a cam sensor on this, just a crank sensor. The cam sensor is the return hole for the turbo. Did the tone ring move on the crank? I've seen those spin before on LS motors. I'm not that familiar with the 8.1, but we have seen that on an LS before. The motor does run. It will start. Does the ECU still have a crank signal? I'm assuming that it does. I didn't look and see at RPM, but the thing will start up and run. I was measuring back pressure, yes. It's not a plug gap thing. We ran the plugs. Like I said, we've already made a bunch of runs under boost and everything works fine, or everything was working fine, and then it stopped working. So it had it only has about 20 thousandths gap. When we had the factory plugs in there, they were gigantic when we were running at NA, and it was fine. But when I ran them under boost, I put new plugs in and we gapped them down at 20. The live feed froze. There's no sound. If the ringlands came off, we would see a bunch of smoke. Yeah, I've pulled the plugs out. I already did a compression test. Blame the guy that tuned it. It's always the tune, right? I've already blamed myself all day. I'm the only one here, so it could only be one guy. In the one dyno pull, it looked like it was going rich. How are you determining that? You're determining that by the shape of the curve? You can't determine that by the shape of the curve. You'd have to look at the air fuel curve. Look, 11.8, 11.8, 11.8, 11.7, 11.7, 11.8, 11.8, 11.7, 11.7, etc. It's all it didn't, the airfield didn't vary by more than 0.3 of an airfield point. It's not going rich. What kind of coil does an 8.1 have? It does have, it looks like they're LS1 coils. Or not, I mean, LS engine family coils. I'm leaning toward a spark plug, a wire, coil. That's kind of what I'm thinking. The boost didn't spike at all. It didn't change. I don't think it's a, I don't because if it was a valve spring or something, then it would still take another load in at lower engine speeds, and that's not what's happening. Admiral, I've already pulled the plugs. I've already done a compression test. I've already tried to run it again. That's not it. The computer is a Holley HP. Do I think 1,000 horsepower? No, not with a stock camshaft. I'm not running this on MS3. We're running it on a Holley HP because we have an LS harness and everything for it, which is what we're using. If you had EGTs or lambdas in each one, yeah, that would be nice. I don't have that on these headers. But what I can go, what I was going to do to try to determine if it's a coil or a plug or wire is I'll start it up and put a little bit of heat in it, and then we'll just use a temp gun on all the tubes. Valve timing, I don't think that's changed. I'm hoping, and the one thing that could happen is the sensor could slip. I mean, the trigger can slip. Have you tried turning it on and off? That's the key for anything electrical, right? I don't think this thing has 200,000 miles on it, but I can check valve springs. But if the valve spring gets weak, usually the thing will run up to a certain RPM, and it doesn't usually fall over like that. Maybe you're blowing the intake valve off the seat, but we would be able to, it would take a load in at a lower engine speed, I would think. Control Alt Delete. I want to pull the valve covers off just because I want to look at everything. We did a cranking compression test first just to make sure that, because if we broke, like if you pitched a rocker off or that kind of thing, I would want to take a look at that. I also want to we normally take the valve covers off to check and make sure that we didn't break a spring or something. The gas should be good. All the plugs look good. There's no detonation. The crank trigger's on the back of the crank. We're not using a cam sensor. Yeah, the crank sensors on these are really long. They're not like the LS that go into the side of the block. What was the coolant temp when the power fell off? 140 or something. It's hard to tell whether it seems like one cylinder or not on a turbo motor, because if you have one bad one, it throws the whole thing off. The turbo gets unhappy. And I did it. Yeah, Eric, I did a compression test. All the cranking compression is even. When somebody was asking about one of the Big Bang motors, when when the Big Bang motor let go, you knew it. I haven't taken it off to run it NA to see. That would be another thing that we do. And normally what I do when we run a turbo motor like this, after I'm done running it, if it's all happy and safe and it's making power, I'll usually take the turbo stuff off because it's fairly easy to do. Once getting it on there and getting it all working is a little bit of work, but taking it off is very fast. And then we just stick headers back on it, and then we make another, checking run NA to make sure that the NA still repeats, that the motor is still happy, so that we know, if nothing else, we know that when we go to put it on next time, that it's still a good running motor. The Bonzarelli fix, that's right. Smack it with a screwdriver. I have smacked it several times with a hammer, but that's because the block dowels are wanting to come out. James, we'll check the springs and see. I don't know how the springs all of a sudden go bad, but that's possible. Alternator out drop. There's no alternator on it. I don't know if the timing chain is, somebody's asking about the timing chain. I don't know if the timing chain is super loose because I haven't ever looked inside the motor. This motor made 422 or so with the headers on it, and then less than that with the stock exhaust manifolds. Plug in the OBD2 and do a diagnostic. Dart does make a carb intake for this. The TPS signal actually wouldn't drop power. We've run them along a number of times without TPSs. Yeah, I am. The procedure from here is going to be that I start it up, put heat in it, and see which cylinders, if there are cylinders that are dead. It seems like an idle's fine, but I'll see if there's any, temperature missing from them, and we'll take a look at those. We've already done a crank and compression test so that we know that part of his sound, and then I could take the valve cover off and see if I'd have to take a spring off to measure it. And the problem with that is I don't know what it should have been because I'll only be measuring one spring. And if it's already bad, I don't know that that's bad or good. Unless I can, if it's 50, then I'll go, yeah, that's probably not enough. One of the spark plugs were from your scrap pile. Amos, we don't have those plugs in there anymore, but it ran just fine NA. Yeah, it looks like the throttle cable broke. I checked that, though. It's still getting full throttle. The poll is about wondering whether or not the coil packs are the problem with this motor not making power anymore. It's not a stock ECM. It's a Holley HP. Boost is closing the throttle body. Okay. 7 pounds of boost, I don't think would hold that open or close. I haven't checked back pressure on the run where the thing let go, though. So let's see. Boost was consistent. Yeah, 7.6, 7.8, 7.6, 7.7, 7.8. So all that was consistent. So we'll do boost, and then do this, do that one, do that, do that. Yeah, the back boost pressure to back pressure relationship is still about the same. Crosses over 36 or 3,700. With this one had 7.8 pounds of boost pressure and 9.7 pounds of back pressure at the peak. The back pressure was less than the boost pressure through about half of the curve. Did a hose clamp fail? You would think that's exactly what I thought, because I have on a number of boosted applications, we've blown the hose off many times. I did that on the Engine Master Steel. There's a very famous, we blew the hose off during some of the Engine Masters testing when I was doing the Big Bang motor. And when it blows off, you can see all the condensation because we're running ice water in the intercooler. You can see a bunch of condensation just blow out of the tube. And so we know what that does, and it obviously stops making power. And I've done that on my Vortec Mustang and other applications too. This was still making the boost, so the boost was still there. I'm thinking it's plugs. It might well be plugs. The plugs, when I say I put new plugs in, they weren't new plugs. They were they were used plugs. But like I said, they have a bunch of them. They probably got 8 or 10 runs on them under boost. It's not spark plug gap. They're down at 20. I don't think it will make the same NA power right now. Probably not. It doesn't want to load in at all. Now, Amos, you're saying that the wires were bad, the factory wires? The plugs are in are TR6s, NGKs. Jason, it's an Apex deal. Exactly. It's not a stock ECU. I haven't done any other runs on it, NA, that you can see. We just walked in, all the turbo stuff is still hooked up. Yeah, I guess I should have asked if it was valve springs. That seems to be the consensus on our poll, right? I haven't even pulled the intake manifold. It's still the same. Yeah, I can try if what I'm going to do is after I do a heat test on all the cylinders to see what cylinder it is or cylinders it is, I'm going to then I'll replace the things associated with that cylinder. So we'll try. I guess I could put completely new or different LS coil packs on and just plug those in and run those. I think I could even run. I wonder if I could run the LS coil packs and the LS wires, and that way I replace all of that. And so I could do plugs and wires and coil packs, replace them all as one unit, and see what happens. I had a bent reluctor wheel on an LS, and it would idle but wouldn't take any revving load. Why are you sitting here talking to us? 'Cause it's my peeps. Yeah, it will start and run. The 8.1 wires are longer. I think well, I know we do. We have longer than factory LS plug wires because we had to make some for some turbo applications. So I think we have that stuff. I even have a set of those those fancy ceramic booted plug wires. Crank up the battery voltage. Put a boost of spark on it. The motor was in the middle of a run and then died during the middle of the run. It wasn't missing during the load. It just, all the power went away. Extended cranking time? You mean to start up or something? I don't have any video of the boosted runs. I was I was going to set the camera up. We were just running some low boost stuff. I'm just here for the Big Block V6 content. I don't have any of that. I don't know if it will rev without a load. It starts up, but I didn't try free revving it very much. Longer plug bars will make more torque because of the reflected wave. It's an electric reflected wave. Can we see the power curves on the pole? I did. We showed those earlier. Might be interesting to throw an old school timing light on. I don't know if this has a, does this even have a TVC indicator on it? I didn't even look. I don't think the valves are, I mean, the valves could be stuck. I don't think so. It would make it'd make more sense that a spring is broke or a valve is bent, or I certainly thought that I was going to find a blown head gasket or something. Roy, you don't need 625 head studs for 20 pounds of boost. Fuel pressure was constant during the whole run. Try it again. Maybe it fixed itself. Holly pulling time because of high inlet air temperatures at 7 pounds with an air-to-water intercooler on it. No, it's not that. The Holly's not hooked up. It's not set up to do that. It's not. I think all the modifiers are turned off. Let's see. Fuel modifiers. All that should be zeroed out. Yeah, all of that's zeroed out. I don't let it do that. Injectors are not plugged because we know that the air fuel was the same. The cranking compression was good. Yeah, it's not a map sensor because it's, although, you know, I say that might be a good thing to check. Because I have had that happen before. The map signal is there now, but I have had it lose connection during the run, and that's kind of what it seemed like. So I have to look into that. The airfield didn't change. It didn't go rich or lean, at least from the data log that appeared from the run. What's different between the Gen 5 and the Gen 7? Lots of differences. One of them, one's a 496 and the other one's a 454. The Gen 5 has it's a different motor. It has different heads, different intake manifold. It has different deck height. It has, the only thing that they share really are camshafts, and the Gen 5 doesn't even have a hydraulic roller camshaft. The Gen 6 does, and the Gen 7 do, and those can be interchanged, but they have a different firing order. Yeah, if the map sensor goes way off, but it's not getting, it's like it lost signal. I don't know if it recorded the log on the Holly or not. Let's see. Open data log. Data logs 3, 11, 12. Let's see if those are. Is today the 11th? No, this is these are all before then. I thought we'd set it up to auto log, but it didn't. Nope, I don't have a log for that. Chili Willy getting all angry. For the 4th time, did you check to see if it's an issue with the data acquisition or one of the dyno sensors? The dyno sensor doesn't stop the motor from making power. So it's not that. So people are thinking it's a reluctor wheel. I don't have a data log for it, so I can't tell you if the voltage dropped. Do you guys still have the external crank trigger wheel set up you could bolt on? Just throw that on there real quick. I don't have that. How does it get voltage? It has the dyno has 2 batteries in the back. Yeah, the fuel pressure remained constant. So I'm leaning more toward it being a sensor or a lost signal. I want to check. James seems very adamant about springs, so we want to check that. I can't start it up again. It doesn't have any spark plugs in it right now. Amos, it's 100% bad cam sensor. We know that that's the case because that's sitting over on the table. I don't think it could read all the way from over there. What's the range of a cam sensor? Can it read like 6 or 8 feet? Is that enough of a gap? It doesn't have any gas in it. That's a funny thing. That's a funny little side note because I made a pull, and during one of the pulls, I went and got gas and filled it up, put 5 gallons in it. But I'd made a couple of pulls, and I went to make another one, and it actually ran out of gas during the pull and got lean. I thought, God, I mean, you pull off the handle really quick because it ran out of fuel and the fuel pressure started to drop. So you could see that, you could see it on the air fuel meter. But I just don't like seeing that and then having it. I don't want there to be a problem later on because it got hurt. But now it seems like that's not the case. There's no water temp sensor in it. There's no water temp or air temp sensor in it. All that is zeroed out. Short-term fuel correction. There's no fuel correction. It only does what we tell it. It's running batch fire right now. It's not running a cam signal. I don't have the run recorded on video. I stuck some springs in a box and I shipped them to you. That's not necessary. Let me see. I might be able to crank this thing over. I can see if it has RPM. I don't have plugs in it. So let's see if it has. It's got an RPM signal. It's all signaled up. Roy, yeah, you don't need the 625 head studs. The standard head studs will work fine. The bearings were worn enough on your 5.3 that it threw a crank sensor code? Did you get a code? The Holly won't give me a code. Complain to the scrapyard that you bought the engine at. Tell them it's not performing the way that it should, the way that a cheap motor should. This came from one of the viewers. Came from Amos, which is awesome. Crank end play, tone ring alignment. It could be. It could be a sensor. I mean, I wish that I kind of wish that I would mark the sensor like TDC the motor and then mark the sensor. And then that way I could always look in there and see that they were, you know, the same, that it hasn't slipped a tooth or whatever. The back pressure is really low. It's only got 9 pounds of back pressure. The motor lost power during the run, so we're trying to figure out why. The cranking compression is good, but there's something else going on. Amos, what springs did you put in there? Did it have a bunch of fuel compared to the horsepower? I don't know. I have to look at the. I don't have a fuel flow because it's flow of the fuel through the turbines going up into the tower. That's not really telling me anything. But we have an air fuel gauge. I did try another load in after I shut the thing off and did I don't think it was after the cranking compression test. I idled the motor and thought it sounded like it was okay because I walked out and checked to see if there was a. I thought that we'd blew a hose off, but then after I looked at the boost, I'm like, well, that's not it. And so then I thought that for sure I had hurt the motor. I thought certain that I'd blown a head gasket or something. And I did try loading into it, and then the power is way off. I don't need to do a leak down on each cylinder if they all have the same cranking compression. How much power was lost? It lost 500 horsepower or thereabouts. So yeah, it went from more than that. Yeah, almost exactly 500. Went from 638 to 130. So Razor is saying check the load control valve. I think that the servo curve is nice through the whole run. Yeah, the servo starts at 99, drops down to 27 or 28 at 5,500. So all that seemed like it was okay. If the crankshaft was eating a bearing or something, we'd see that in. We've had that happen before, so we've seen what that does to the oil pressure curve, and this is not doing that. The oil pressure curve is still good. Two more minutes. Yeah, it was not running rich when the power went off. Loose rocker or bent push rod. I don't know that it have good cranking compression if that's the case, but I'm going to check that to make sure. The oil pressure was fine. In fact, it's better now than it was last night when I was running it. Oil pressure during the run was 66 pounds. Blow off valve problem. The boost is still there though. The boost isn't sneaking out. Bad oil filter. We probably see that in oil pressure, I would think. Yeah, the oil pressure was perfect. It was 58 to start with and 66 at the end of the run. Yeah, I'm leaning. Well, I don't know. We'll see. Well, I'll check all the things. I would just want to try to figure out what it is. I've got to get going, but I'll try to figure out. I'm going to start it and do a temp test and see what cylinders it is, or cylinder it is, or multiple ones. See if that's the case, and we'll just try to figure it out. I like the fact that it has cranking compression and that it has oil pressure. That usually tells you that the base motor is still there. It's still, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. There's something else going on. So it could be a sensor, it could be a spring, could be the servo on the dyno, although I'm not seeing anything there either. Yeah, the servo is yeah, the sweep on that is really nice. So I don't know. Well, that's why we test. We'll figure it out. This is always a mystery. So I'll figure out what it is, and then I'll be back tomorrow. Well, maybe we'll run. I want to run. I'm more than anything. I want to figure out what this is, and I want to know that the motor's okay. Even if I don't run a whole bunch more boost, because quite honestly, getting up near 900 foot-pounds of torque, I'm not interested in running a whole bunch more power. What this thing needs is now to make that kind of torque. I'd even like to make less torque than that, but put a camshaft in it so that it will carry the power out. I mean, even with the turbo on it, it's still making peak power. So it made 630. Yeah, it's still making peak power at 44 or 4,500 RPM. So it'd be nice to have that a little bit higher. At least the crossover, at least out where the crossover between the horsepower and the torque are. So at least get it so that it's making the same amount of horsepower as it's making torque. So, I mean, I know that this is a stumpy motor, and it's really showing that. Obviously, it's making a lot of torque. So we'll figure it out. We'll make it work. Thank you guys all for showing up, and for all. I gotta close out my. So we're saying 41% yes, it might be a coil pack. 59% no. I think I should have put, is it springs or is it a sensor on there? But thank you guys all for showing up, and I'll hopefully have answers for you guys tomorrow.